So, welcome everyone to this auspicious gathering, this specification. We're celebrating, like Prabhu Srivas has mentioned, 73rd Vyasa Puja celebration of His Holiness 𝐤𝐬𝐬, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So, but what does Vyasa Puja mean to us? And what is the meaning of Vyasa Puja? So, very quickly, etymologically, the word Vyasa Puja comes from two words. Vyasa and Puja. And Vyasa, according to Prabhupada, in a lecture he delivered in London on August 23, 1971, he mentioned that Vyasa means guru. So on this occasion, the disciples come together and worship the guru in all ramifications. Why? Again, according to Prabhupada, in his purport of the Bhagavad Gita 1875, Prabhupada mentions that we are debtors. We owe debt to the sun god. He brings light. We owe debts to Indra. He provides the rain. There are many demigods and we are debtors. And so, what are we doing to be able to pay this debt? Can you imagine someone? So, when we receive service from someone, we are obligated. We are bound to be able to pay in some sense. So what is the payment? What do we pay? Practically we pay nothing. It's what we call gratis. Not based on merit, not based on qualification. Provides an avenue, facilitates the extrication of the conditioned soul from the ocean of birth and death. And therefore this special worship is set aside to be able to appreciate what the services we have received from the Guru. The Vedic literature is the original Guru, and the spiritual master basically represents Sri Vyasadeva. So worship that is given to the spiritual master is actually given to the Supreme Personality of God. Vyasadeva is the literal incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And though sometimes people wonder why you're worshiping your leader, or people will even ask query Prabhupada in this regard. But it's not a question of personality worship. There is a spiritual connotation in respect to that. I mean, it's just like we pay respects. In fact, we worship, most people, most cultures, they worship their parents. And it's worthy because they provide you with material body. Debt to our parents. And the highest of debt we owe is to the spiritual master. No salary, nothing. He works so hard, 24/7, to deliver us from the ocean of birth and death. So if there is anybody worthy of worship, that is the personality worthy of worship. And so on this occasion, the Vyasa Puja, which is celebrated to honor the spiritual master, to worship the spiritual master. And what does that worship mean to us? And sing his glories, it's part of it. But the real worship is serenity. Solely depending on the spiritual master as the protector, as a friend, as the lover. And therefore, on this day, we have the opportunity to be able to express a little bit of reciprocation, appreciation to the spiritual master about what he has done to us, to elevate us, to give us a leverage in our spiritual pursuit. And so Prabhupada set the ball rolling, and it's not only just Prabhupada. Lord Krishna instructed Lord Brahma, and Brahma instructed Nada. And Nada instructed Vyasadeva. So this is what we call a disciplic succession, and each of these acharyas, each of these gurus, has to be worshipped just like we worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because even their services is purely gratis, we don't pay anything. And how much remuneration can we pay? What can we really pay? Can you really imagine how much you have to pay to the sun god for giving light energy? Even Varuna, these days they are selling bottled water. And 1 liter is so expensive. How much is 1 liter here in Mayapur? Huh? 20 rupees. 20 rupees. Okay. So if life would have been so difficult, life would have been so difficult for everyone. If the services we have to quantify and qualify based on remuneration, we can pay. What about the air we are breathing? Again, it's gratis. If you have a problem with, with your lungs or breathing system, and then you have to get some oxygen, you know how much you pay? But that same oxygen we're getting it free. Nothing, for paying for nothing. So, there is a concrete evidence that we are receiving services from the devatas and from the spiritual master without really paying for the price or paying for any price. And what basically Krishna wants devotee is better than his together to be able to worship. What is the worship that we are even rendering? What is the worship we are doing? To offer flowers? Anybody can get flowers anywhere. To offer the guru, the spiritual master wants, hey, we should be thinking about, we should ask ourselves, what is the instruction he gave to me? Have I executed instructions? Sometimes it's so easy to make selective execution of the instruction that is favorable to me, I execute it. The one that is not favorable to me, forget it. I remember, I don't want to mention the country, but I witnessed a situation where a guru, an ISKCON guru, was staying in the host, the one of the house. She told Guru, I think Guru told something, give it out. So there are certain things you can do, certain things you cannot do. This is called selective execution. This is not surrender. Surrender means accepting instructions that inconvenience you. And so, going into the Soviet Union to distribute books, that is no convenience. Because if you are caught, you're in trouble. But the spiritual master, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he risked even his life to serve his own spiritual master. It's so easy to take on behalf of your spiritual master. So this is an exemplified situation for us that even Prabhupada, at a very advanced age, he deserted the comfort of Vrindavan and went to hellish planet to preach. New York was like hellish planet at the time. He went there, and we saw also from what happened. When someone is not religious, they respect the sadhu. So the Vyasa Puja day is a special day for us, a day for reminiscing how we should become more determined in serving the mission of the spiritual master through acceptance of or execution of services that are even an inconvenience to us. Because that is basically what a true disciple is. It's not about selective execution of instructions. That makes spiritual life very challenging. It's not a cakewalk. So, today we are happy. All of us have gathered here to glorify Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj for all of his sacrifices to us. I remember when he was in West Africa, he will announce, and he had his own program set out, way much advanced. He told us, those were the early days. He told us, I am here to make seances, to make gurus. If you're not ready, check out. Yeah. So, we are happy, all of you have gathered here, and we need to understand what is the true meaning for furthering the mission of the spiritual master. Disciple, I'm just giving a very down-to-earth meaning of that terminology. We have so challenges, sacrificing our convenience for furthering the mission of the acharyas. That is what every spiritual master has done. So again, thank you very much for coming, and we should reflect on how we should become more dedicated in the service of Srila Vyasa, represented by the spiritual master. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj 𝐾𝐻.
Holiness, Bhakti Swami Maharaj 𝐾𝐻. So thank you very much, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is one of the senior disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. We have His Holiness Bhakti Damodara Maharaj. We have His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. We have His Holiness Bhakti 𝐶𝐚𝐤𝐿 Maharaj. They are all disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Of course, we have Bhakti 𝐶𝐚𝐤𝐿 Maharaj. Though not a direct disciple, as a section disciple. Yesterday we were talking at the parikrama, and he told me that actually it was Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj who pushed him to take sannyas. He was not ready for it when he told him that Maharaj said it is important, you have to do it. So, unfortunately, he took sannyas after Maharaj had left. But at least he has executed the order of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So we are very happy to have all of them here to celebrate this wonderful occasion of the 73rd Vyasa Puja of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. So I would like my co-MC, Pranab Prabhu, to announce the next two speakers for this occasion.
Hare Krishna. So, as Srivas Prabhu already announced, our next speaker will be His Holiness Narasimha Maharaj. And after Bhakti Narasimha Maharaj, we're going to have 𝐶𝐾𝐚𝐤𝐿 Prabhu, which is also a Prabhupada disciple. He's also, we can say he's a member of the Mayapur community, because every year he's here spending so much time with us. And Maharaj, Srivas Prabhu is saying that 𝐶𝐾𝐚𝐤𝐿 Prabhu was one of the early devotees that came to West Africa, and he trained the devotees how to do book distribution there, that time. So he will be our next speaker after His Holiness Bhakti Narasimha Swami. Just small announcement, if you need to go to the toilet, we have one toilet here, and we have water outside in case you need. Okay? Thank you very much. Please, Maharaj.
Wrap it on the nail there. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurumritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. First, I would like to thank everyone who has gathered here to celebrate this occasion of the appearance of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Because Prabhupada said these occasions are very auspicious because they are the mothers of devotion. In other words, during the appearances of the Lord's incarnations, as well as the messengers of the Lord, the devotees who come here according to the plan of the Lord to deliver us. When we celebrate these days, that helps to revive our bhakti, as we have been hearing from His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj, how Vyasa Puja should be a day where we revive our commitment to the instructions and the mission of the Guru. But instead, we are having just a party. Just like we have our birthdays, it's wonderful. But actually, Vyasa Puja is not a birthday. It's a program whereby we revive our commitment to the mission of the Guru. Of course, we have many Gurus also. Yes, we have instructing Gurus, we have Diksha Gurus. But Vyasa Puja basically is a reminder as to how far we have gone with the instructions of a Guru and how far we have become closer to Krishna and how far we have distanced ourselves from our attachments. So on these days we can re-establish ourselves to the lotus feet of the spiritual master by offering ourselves more and more. So that's what Maharaj was explaining. I thank him for that. Actually for me, I like this kind of instructions that Maharaj was giving because I always feel that I need to hear something in order to ignite, end up becoming part of you, creating your identity and destination. We are not allowed to do studies like law. We are allowed to enter university to just study teaching and some other, things that were not considered very, very important. So then later on I joined ISKCON with that kind of background, with that curtain, and was very, very difficult in the beginning because when I came to ISKCON, I just realized I'm like kind of like a dog amongst the swans. I was living with devotees from USA, devotees from UK, devotees from France. I've never lived with such people before. And that kind of mindset was still there. It's like you felt inferior automatically. It's like these guys, they're very, very superior. USA was always superior to, like that. So then, until Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj came into my life. So then when he came, he was like a snowball that was rolling, just sprinkling mercy all over. When Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj came, I thought it felt like someone has come from another planet just to open up that curtain. It was wonderful. He just hit at those points very strongly. I've never heard someone speaking like that. And then that was 1985 when he first came. And then he came again 1994. We invited him this time. When he first came, I was working, and then we came when I was a full-time devotee, and then we asked him over, right at the dawn of so-called New South Africa. And so when he saw me, he could understand that I was in this cloud of my past. I could not speak. I lacked inner confidence, lacked belief in myself because of the system and the schools that I was brought under. And then he told me that, you know what, you could become a very discreet preacher. I said, what is a discreet preacher? He said, someone who doesn't talk, but who talk by actions. Discreet preacher. Oh yeah, I never had that. And then he said something else like, you know, in this place you are stagnant. Stagnant? I never heard those words. I'm stagnant. Yeah. So, as Bhakti Tirtha Swami was saying, he, you know, in West Africa, he would say, I have come here to make people of quality. If you are not, you know, check out. Yeah, I felt like that. This is someone who has come to shake off my gloomy situation. And I was thinking, stagnant? I've never heard that word. I'm stagnant? I thought it applied to the pools of water. Yes, I was like a pool of water in my own comfortable situation. And then he asked me, and another question that nobody has asked me, you're brahmachari, right? Yes. What's your plan? Plan? I said, Maharaj, I just want to preach, that's all. This is what Prabhupada spoke. He said, have you ever thought of the ashram called sannyas? I said, sannyas, I became fearful when he mentioned that word. He said to me, in Africa, may not be available in the future. I may not be available in the future in Africa. So I want all to start preparing themselves for sannyas, because I will not be available for Africa. He told me that in 1994, and he did that. So at that time I became afraid. And of course later in 2004, that was 1994, 10 years later I kind of like surrendered to that idea. Yes. So that way, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was not a bridge preacher. He pushed you over the bridge. Sometimes we think we are preaching, but we are just creating a bridge and people remain on the bridge. No, with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he pushed you across the bridge. You had to surrender. He made it clear. And then I realized that I need to surrender. This Maharaj is different. Yeah, so in that way, I always remember those words of His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And of course, I had so many good times with him. Because to me, he didn't treat me like, you know, like like a guru treating someone inferior. He treated me like a younger brother. And I really loved that, because in our culture, we have elder brothers. An elder brother, he will come and tell you, you know, this is how life goes. You are taking a wrong direction. Stay in this direction, and that'll be okay. And then he told me one thing that no one told me. He said, since you are comfortable here, I will suggest that you leave South Africa, which for you is like a paradise. You just travel to African countries. Yes, like a sannyas, even though you are afraid of taking sannyas now. And he told me, you just break away from your attachments, you just travel. And I'll tell you, that was another experience. It was another experience. You know, in South Africa, our water is so good that it's equal to bottled water in other countries. You can just go and drink water from the tap. It's same as bottled water. So when I went out, I just realized Maharaj was right. Yeah, like I had to struggle with so many things. I had to adjust. So in that way, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, to me, he was a person that kind of brought me away from my comfortability, which was not comfortability, it's just in the mind. Yeah, it's just in the mind. In the mind, we create all these fantasies. Maharaj was not a person, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was psychologically astute. He can see you and tell what is in your heart. Yeah, so that way, working with him as my GPC from 1994 till 97, I kind of like learned a lot, and I appreciate that. That's what sustained me. His enthusiasm, his charisma. We can talk about that until next day, how he mesmerized people in the media. It was just like amazing. It was like, he was just like, a snowflake. People were just shocked. Yeah. What type of a person is this? Where has he come from? Yeah. It was very, very interesting, when he used to meet these diplomats and presidents. I was with him when he met President Mandela and many other personalities. They were just mesmerized. So that I will leave for other devotees. I don't want to take up your time. Thank you very much for allowing us this wonderful memorial where we are remembering His Holiness, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
His Holiness Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj ki. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for remembering these lovely memories with Gurudev. And now we would like to invite His Grace Sikha to Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bicharane Nivistesha Sunyavari Pasya Jadeshatarane Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namane. Hare Krishna. Thank you for inviting me here. And it seems like every Gaur-Panim, there's a challenge to get here. I was on South, I didn't determine the date for Maharaj's Vyasa Puja till it was very late. But I had already committed to South Africa Parikaram. So I went with my scooter so I can get back for this. So thank you, Maharaj, for one time I missed, that happened before. So I don't want to disappoint Srivas anymore. He was very disappointed in me. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed. He was like, oh, I never want to see him like that ever again. So, anyways, as Maharaj is saying, so many things to say about Maharaj. One person can sit here all day, for sure. One point I wanted to mention that he talked about the sannyas. Maharaj told you to take sannyas. There's a devotee named Sanatan. You all don't know him, but you know Sanatan, huh? Yeah, he's kind of went with some other Gaudiya Math at this moment. But when we were in West Africa, he came to me. And he said, I had a dream. Bhakti Tirtha Swami had gave me sannyas. At that time, Maharaj wasn't a guru, not even a GBC. It was, early days of ISKCON, after Prabhupada left, so things were kind of, anyway, what they were. So I went to Maharaj, I said, guess what Sanatan goes? Sanatan told me. He said he had a dream of you and that you had gave him sannyas. And I was kind of like, ha, ha, ha. And he looked at me very seriously. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but something to the effect like, yeah. I was taken aback by it because it was, I was like, wait a minute, because he's a god brother, so you don't really see him. Now we see, after that's one thing, when the guru leaves, then you know what their devotee is like. When they're born, you don't know. That's why, in one sense, you can say the disappearance is probably more important than their appearance. Because when they're born, you have no idea who these people are, but once they leave, you see what they've done. So now, in retrospect, I go, oh yeah, he was right. Of course, he didn't take sannyas in this kind, but he did take sannyas. I wrote these notes and they just disappeared. Man, I hate these things. This freaking. There we go. Oh well, I guess Krishna wants me. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Maharaj also mentioned how Bhakti Tirtha make you feel so, like he's saying, like he's family. I became a devotee in 1974, and of course, 𝐃𝐚𝐦𝐢 was really, you can almost say it's the Atya Lila, 1974-77. Finally, things are in place the way Prabhupada wanted for that particular time. And the devotees are, we're executing it. So when you join, you just fit right in. There's no question of, well, maybe we should do it a different way. So, they had the hierarchical steps, If you're a bhakta, you serve prasadam to everybody else, and then you ate. Not like nowadays, I think new bhakta comes, you want some more burfi? Are you comfortable? No. Day one, you serve everybody. And they would go down the line, Brahmins, first initiates like this. And then whatever's left, if all the maha's gone, you don't get maha. So, in that order, sometimes devotees weren't so. The devotees who were senior don't really treat the new devotees so welcomingly. But Maharaj, same way, first met him, it made you feel so welcome. Of course, there wasn't a lot of black-bodied devotees in the movement at that time. And very impressive, materially speaking, he's very impressive. Right? Very handsome, like say Black Lotus. Charisma. He could have been a big politician if he wanted to. Actually, he was on that path. That's why he, Princeton, involved with the leaders of the civil rights movement, some of these big shots. These people are such big people that when they were making the book, I was trying to get the name and phone number to give to Satyaraj. They're not listed. You cannot find their phone number or their address. Certain people like that, they're protected, so the crazies don't get them. So I had to go down there to the office and say, hey, look, I'm looking for Mr. Such and Such, because we're doing this book on John Flavors, It took a while to get his number. Then he gave it to me, and I gave it to Satyaraj. But, very... So, Mark, same experience. You feel more encouraged, because at that time, even everyone knew it. This is 1975 when I met. But he was still with the library part, which was important, putting these books in Prabhupada's in the universities, which wasn't an easy task. I wish 𝐿 Swami was here. He has nice pastimes of that. How Maharaj, he could get into anywhere, and everybody took a set. So that's why when he went to Russia, he was very expert at getting into the universities and putting those books there. And more importantly, it wasn't just that, but at that time, all of us, we were all striving because we wanted, as Bhakti Vyasa Swami was mentioning, you want to please the Guru, doesn't it? When Guru says, oh, thank you very much, doesn't that make you feel like life is, so. Anyways, so we all wanted to get Prabhupada to say, at least, thank you, 𝐾𝐚𝐤𝐬. But I joined in 1974. What more could I do that other people are already doing? I wasn't anything unique in terms of material ability. So, I remember the Charadeshna distributed 200 big books, first devotee. That was, most of the time you're doing 20. He did 200. Prabhupada wrote a letter to him, thank you. So the next year, devotees 300, 400, 500, no letter. What happened? So I always felt confident that I could get that somehow or another. I thought maybe I know what I'll do. I'll become Prabhupada's personal servant. I'm going to bump out Hari Sari or something. I'm going to take his position. You know, I really thought I could. You felt like that. You wanted that. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he did it. He was one of the few devotees in Prabhupada when he said, "You write me about your preaching activities." Direct to him, not to somebody else. I want brought directly to me. Like that. And Prabhupada would read it and enjoy it so much. As a matter of fact, one of the side benefits of that was also during that time is, because we're in a revolutionary mood. We're not in the mood of just, we want to enjoy Krishna consciousness, which you can get caught up in sometimes. It's so nice, right? So when Prabhupada would come, it's, not that everybody can just walk into Prabhupada's room. I want to speak of seeing Mahaprasadam. They would never get through GBC, Sannyasis, Temple Prep, and never get down to the Bhaktas. So when I came to Mayapur in 77, I had a couple of goals. One was to get Prabhupada's Maha and to get a darshan. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj somehow or another got me in the room. It was like when the buses arrived, I had, like Maharaj says, he like you to have a plan. Don't just, I want to preach. Okay, be specific and accomplish it. You have to set a goal and then you try to accomplish it. So I knew that when the buses arrived here, Mayapur was pretty new, and when they said, okay, just go find a room. The long building was there, not even finished. And I thought, okay, they're going to be looking for rooms. I'm going to Prabhupada's room. This is my chance to get in because everyone's busy, so they can't, block me. So I ran up to the door, and one sannyasi standing there, and he tells me, I said, I want to see Srila Prabhupada. He says, come back later for darshan. And I think, I'm just a new devotee. You're not going to let me in for darshan. And I was getting a little disappointed. I started thinking, I said, wait a minute, there must be a back door. So anyway, they say Siki Mihiri, but it's really Sneaky Mihiri. I casually walk around. Sure enough, there's a back door. And it's wide open, and Prabhupada's sitting right there on that desk as it is. So I pay my obeisances, and I sit in the door. I'm happy, because it's like Prabhupada's like right there. I'm so close to Prabhupada. And Bhakti Tirtha was in the room. He was Ganesham at the time. He said, come on in. That's why I sit down in the corner over there, because I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm going to sit there. I'll be quiet, chant japa, don't make any disturbance. And Prabhupada speaking to some Bengali people. They get up to leave. That Maharaj opens the door, and he sees me sitting there. I'm like, oh my God. I turn, and I'm looking at Prabhupada with my eyes closed, and I'm praying, please don't kick me out. I'm not going to make it. I just want to be in the room with you. The door closes. It's just me and Prabhupada. So I personally think, because Bhakti Tirtha was so dear to Prabhupada, and he saw him let me in, he let me stay in the room. Otherwise, I spoke to Brahmananda many years later about this. He said, you in Prabhupada's room, how long? Because I was in the room, but he never really spoke to me. And I didn't speak to him. That was my mental deal. Don't disturb, just sit there. And I was feeling a little, wow, Prabhupada didn't even speak to me. Man, I am so fallen. He said, you'd be happy he let you sit there. He hated people sitting around doing nothing. And they were both discussing this. And he says, yeah, I think it was Bhakti Tirtha, because he liked Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj so much, because he invited you in, he let you stay. So thank you so much, Maharaj. I won't take too much time, so many speakers. One other quick thing just to mention was, have anybody ever see Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj sleeping? Those who, I don't know, maybe if you're the servant. I never seen him. Every time I saw him, he's awake with his dhoti. Never sleep. He worked so hard for Prabhupada. Even in those days, in the early days, I mean, we were, Mangalarti, eat your breakfast in the van, go sell books, come back 6 o'clock, just eating program, maybe some popcorn, hot milk, Krishna, but go to sleep. So, you can get your 16 rounds in. You just get them in there. And he's chanting like 32 rounds. You go to the morning program, he's in the temple, and he gets like, what the freak this guy said? I never seen him, I don't see him go to bed either. Even after Prabhupada left, I began working with him to go to West Africa, and he was always up, always busy. And even when he had to have his leg cut off, I went there to see him when that surgery was being done. And he's sitting there and he told me, he says, the worst thing about this, I can't do anything. I got to sit here. He says, you have your laptop? Yeah, open it up. Okay, log on to my email. Okay. And he said, start reading the emails to me. Okay. Then he starts talking, I said, you want me to type? Yeah, type. I said, Maharaj, even he came to Atlanta once, I remember, he just had one little bag. I said, Maharaj, you have any more luggage? No, this is it. I said, where's your laptop? He said, do you have one? Yeah, well, I'm using yours. I said, okay. And same thing, we get to the temple, he sits down, he opens it up, and he says, type! I never took dictation before, but I did the best I could. He said, I never touch him. I don't have time. So he didn't waste time. He's very innovative. Like Maharaj said about bridge preaching. People call it bridge preaching. He's the first to do it. He would get criticized for it. But one thing he told me was, he said, they can criticize me, but they can't stop me. You know why? I said, why? He said, because my sadhana is better than theirs. He's always in his shaved up, sika, japa. So you can't say, you're in Maya. No. So you can do whatever you want, and you take all those little risks to do those things. So anyways, Maharaj, we are missing you so much. And it's happy to see, as Maharaj predicted about making the sannyasis and West African devotees are really taking that austerity. Don't think sannyasa is something that's just all maha. It's not. So the seeds of
Thank you very much, 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐷. I owe my spiritual life to 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐷 because when I joined the movement, he was the Sankirtan leader in Ghana in the middle of 1981. And he took me on Sankirtan, and we traveled, and he showed us how to exhibition protocols. And that is how, from the Sankirtan, we became a member of Bhakti Tirtha Swami in Lagos. And that was the end of my material life. So thank you very much. We will now invite Muhammad Prabhu as our next speaker. They will speak their disciples, so we want to give chance to our guests.
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नाम्ने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवान् प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त। Everything was very clear. Very good friend with my Guru Maharaj, Gopal Krishna Maharaj. So I think they were very lucky because they were single. that he was single black body African Prabhupada disciple, and Gopal Krishna Maharaj single Indian disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And they are very, very, I think, very much loved by Prabhupada, very, very special. Prabhupada gave a very special care for both of them, because it is little white movement is gone that time. So they had many times so much trouble. Prabhupada will always give them solace. Oh, no, just do your duty. You are trying to please me, don't bother for anything else. So I think they continued, and Maharaj was very broad-minded. Whenever he came to Bombay or Vrindavan or Delhi, wherever I see him, when I saw him in Rath Yatra, New York, wherever I meet, he always says, oh, everything's good. He, very attentive, not like that you are going and he will not see you. Immediately he will catch, say, everything is good, you are all right, you need anything. Very careful person. So it is very auspicious to those who have taken direct shelter from him, like he has made Swamiji so many sannyasis, strong sannyasis. And all his sannyasis are very fond of Delhi, so he always gets chance to serve them. So, I was just here in Mayapur and I didn't know that I have to come here. But Maharaj just told me, please, come. I said, okay. I pray on this auspicious day because today is his Vyasa Puja. He is very merciful and he was a very intelligent preacher. He always preached to the high level people. Senators, big leaders, presidents, and by Krishna's grace I have also got the same type of job to preach the big people in political field or in material field anyway. So I just beg his mercy on this auspicious day that he bestow his mercy on me. I can also continue, preach, always remember Krishna and do the Srila Prabhupada service. Thank you very much for inviting me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mahatma Prabhu. We would like to invite 𝐤𝐬𝐢 to come and say something about Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj.
𝐒𝐰𝐚𝐦𝐻 𝐃𝐚𝐦𝐤𝐢 चक्षुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री नमः पंचकपटु कृपा सिन्धुवेव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. So thank you very much for allowing me to share a few little remembrances of Maharaj. I was actually not expecting to say anything, but for my own purification I accepted the invitation. Actually, it's not that I had terribly a lot of personal association with Maharaj, but nevertheless there was a few things which really, really stuck in my mind. One Bhagavatam class Maharaj gave here in Mayapur. This is many years ago. I wouldn't even remember which year it was. But it was in those days when Maharaj was still wearing his royal attire. And he was getting so lively on the Vyasa song. And I can only remember he was saying, when will the day come when 𝐁𝐡𝐚𝐤𝐬 is the governor of Bengal? And when will the day come when such and such is doing that? And every time he mentioned one person, he got more and more enthusiastic, and all different paraphernalias were flying off his body. You know? His wristwatch flew off when he was, you know, and then his cap would fly off, and his chadar would fly off. Anybody remembers this class? Anybody was there?
97.
97, yeah, that could be. I mean, the audience was just struck. You know, we were just listening to him with open mouth. You know, it was quite something. So, and then I did meet him regularly at the Ukrainian Bhakti Sangam festival. He used to come there. And yeah, his presence was just very charming, and he really added a different flavor to the whole festival, always mixing with the devotees, dancing with them in kirtan, and he was just so accessible, available to the devotees. It was really, really beautiful. And I also remember at the festival, he was once sharing how he always likes to have some gifts in his suitcase to give away to devotees. So I thought, I took that idea. I thought, that's a beautiful idea. So then I also had always some gifts with me. And then once in Ukraine, Russia, they were painting these beautiful hand-painted badges of Radha Sundara, Vrindavan, Radha Madhava. So I got a few, and I gave them to him to assist him to give some gifts to the devotees, and he really appreciated it, and he liked them. But what I really like to remember, and of course today is his appearance day and not his disappearance day, but nevertheless, I think he taught us all a wonderful lesson how to leave this world, really strikingly. And for those of you who don't know this lecture, there's this 5-hour Sunday feast lecture which Radha Swami gave, describing his last 6 weeks with Maharaj. And this just really deeply affected me, especially this point where Radha Swami shares how Maharaj was so absorbed in Guru Katha that he actually managed to overcome the level of pain, even though his body was so emaciated, and there must have been so much pain there, but because of his complete absorption, he didn't feel any pain. And he made this, he exclaimed at some point, life cannot be any better than this. For nothing in the world I would want to exchange my present position with any other. And that was really, that really deeply affected me. And then shortly after he left, about 3 years later, I was diagnosed myself with cancer. And somehow this whole meditation on Bhakti Tirtha Swami's departure really prepared me, actually. And I thought, okay, looks like now it's my turn. Well, this is 16 years ago, so I'm still hanging around. But yeah, I mean, it really prepared me, yes. And I'm, of course, very grateful for that. And yeah, whenever I like to talk about death, our final challenge, I always talk about Bhakti Tirtha Swami, how he left this world, how he set this example of just really utmost absorption cutting himself off from all distractions, and yeah, he didn't even want to be much surrounded by devotees anymore. And he was saying, don't call me Guru Maharaj, don't call me this, I'm not this, not that, all I am is servant. And yeah, so he just left in such a glorious way. And as we say, there is no glorious life without glorious death. So I think Maharaj set this wonderful example for us to have a glorious life ending with a most glorious departure. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki,
Thank you very much. So at this point, I would like everybody to move a little bit forward because it looks like we need more space in the back.
Many more devotees will come, so.
We want to invite His Grace Bhakti Prabhu to say a few words to Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. A few months before your departure, you recorded a video for the devotees to inspire their preaching and your book. And you mentioned how we will be together more and more, keeping Srila Prabhupada's instructions as the Paribhasa Sutra, as the seed, the main artery, the main instruction for us. You made these very prophetic words, this proclamation, and some may think, how is it possible? The spiritual master is not limited by time and space. He is present more and more through his example, through his instructions, through his disciples. And we can see how your influence is being perceived and expanding more and more in all these different ways. More and more people know about Bhakti Tirtha Swami now than they probably have back then. Maharaj was very unassuming. I saw him on the GBC in the 90s. He only spoke when it really mattered. Otherwise, he was a quiet observer. He didn't have his own quarters. He didn't have his own house or his own place to stay. He stayed with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in one of the small, like office type of room, servant quarter, yes. And I got to observe him there. He was very strong and very direct, at the same time very lenient. Mahabodhi Prabhu told me a few months ago that one time he went with you to a mid-sized university in the United States to take standing orders for Prabhupada's books. And somehow or other, that university was closed. And they drove there all the way, many hours. So Mahabodhi said, let's just go to the next place. Let's not waste any time here. And you said, let me use the restroom real quick. Mahabodhi said, well, be back fast. And you went in there, and in the restroom you met one person. As a professor, turns out to be professor of Sanskrit. And when he came back after 20 minutes, he had sold 2 standing orders to that professor, and he said, I also want one for the anthropology department. So your desire to preach and to distribute Prabhupada's books was so burning, was so relentless, that even though the situations were not always favorable, but Krishna did the magic and he turned things around. We're very inspired by your example, and by your disciples who are carrying on that legacy. I'm very fortunate to be close to some of your disciples, and it is very inspiring to see how your legacy of compassion, of innovative preaching, of inspirational sadhana, and of pushing Krishna's envelope to another level, going beyond the comfort zone and venturing out into new uncharted territory, because that's what Prabhupada wanted us to do, because that's what this was all about. So, and this day I pray to you, Maharaj, that you please grant me always your shelter and the association of your disciples, so I can also take guidance and inspiration through them from you. Thank you very much for your kindness. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Naveen Prabhu. Actually, Naveen Prabhu was one of our youngest book distribution ministers. And that's how he got to meet Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in GBC meeting. And he became attracted to him by his dynamic way of doing things. And even when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had left the planet, he wanted to still serve him. And so Naveen Prabhu and his friend 𝐤𝐢𝐳𝐝𝐴 Prabhu from Canada, they visited West Africa. They came to West Africa and they traveled through Nigeria, Togo, Ghana, Côte d'Ivoire, trying to inspire devotees to do this mission. So we are very grateful for that sacrifice that you made visiting West Africa, and we're looking forward to more visits. Actually, Africa is a sleeping giant. We have 54 countries in Africa. I'm not sure whether we have covered even 15 countries. In West Africa, we have 16 countries. We've only covered 5. 11 countries are uncovered. And the whole Africa, the whole of North Africa, there's nothing happening. That is the Arabic world, nothing is happening. In East Africa, a few countries. In South Africa, a few countries. Central Africa, 1 or 2 countries. So there are many countries that require book distribution, preaching, and people like Naveen Prabhu who would like to do some pioneering work. We will invite them, and anybody who likes to do some book distribution, some preaching, please, you're welcome. So thank you for your visit to West Africa, and we hope you will come again with more devotees and help us do the preaching. At this point, we'd like to invite Atu Krishna Prabhu to say a few words about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
Father 𝐤𝐸𝐴, I would like to request you to actually come forward a little more. Yeah, we have a whole crew from Gurukul, around 40 boys came. They're waiting outside to come in. After all, we are in India, so there's always more space inside. So please.
Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindhubheva cha putitanam pavaneva vaishnaveva namo namaha. I remember the extraordinary smile of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. I will never forget. This year there's no pictures. We're missing the pictures. It was always every year the pictures, just different aspects, different features. I'm missing them, but I never even heard. I didn't even know about His Holiness. We arrived in Lagos with one other devotee from Australia. We were collecting. We arrived in Lagos, and then well, there's an ISKCON center here, so let's go to the temple. And Omkar, the president, he saw us immediately. Oh, Srila Krishna Party says. We were waiting there in a little reception outside his. Opened the door again, smiled. It was like the sun rising in the office when he opened his mouth and smiled. And that was it. That wasn't just his smile was enough to completely mesmerize us, completely win me over. Everything after that didn't matter. So. But at that time we were in Africa, we were devotees from Australia, so he gave us a lot of attention, a lot of affection, and cared for us and announced us. We stayed in the temple quite some time, doing our collection work and staying in the temple. And at that time, His Holiness there was some issues with the GBC, with New Vrindavan, and he hadn't been coming to the GBC for some time. And so we just arrived from the flight, and he sat and spoke to us for about 3 hours. We didn't even take bath or anything. He just spoke to us his whole circumstances and everything. I felt honored. I felt, what can I say, that he shared so much intimacy with us and said so many things that I can't speak on this day. There too, he was hurt. He was hurt by his godbrothers over that issue. So the style of preaching there in Lagos, it was so wonderful. I remember he would come gliding down the stairs at 4:29. Just you'd see this flash of saffron, and then into Mangaladi, and after Mangaladi, he would sit on Vyasa and give class. Immediately after 5:15, give class for about 45 minutes. Everyone's sitting there. That was before japa. Class before japa, and it was brahmacharis mainly, some brahmacharinis in the temple, so classes were very intense and strict. And then he would just sit, he would give class, and then after speaking for half an hour, 45 minutes, he would just take the japa mala, he wouldn't move, and just chant japa, and then we would sit there for the whole japa period, and then he's still on Vyasa chanting japa, and then we'd have Guru Puja. He was still sitting on Vyasa Guru Puja. And then we'd worship Prabhupada, and then we would spill out the temple, we'd spill out onto the street. This is in Lagos, Nigeria. It was a poor neighborhood. It was close to the airport. The rent was cheap, so close to the airport, the flights, you could just reach up and touch the planes. Surround themselves with 5 fires. You had to have those mosquito coils, about 5 of them, burning at night, ferocious mosquitoes. But those kirtans were so sweet. It was hot, and the devotees, the kirtan, of course, African devotees, African people musical, so the kirtans were very wonderful. There was Congo drums, perhaps they were this high, Congo drums, big full-size Congo drums, boom, 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 Congo drums, African Congo. They were welded onto this steel frame, so that the devotee would be carrying those on the Sankirtan party, carrying the big Congo drums, and then we'd be cruising along. Maharaj had that kind of like a large tambourine thing that was like a drum, and he would dance with that, and then we'd stop, and then they'd put the Congo drums down, boom, 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 and the kirtan going on wild. It was so. Now Africa is austere. Africa is austere. His Holiness mentioned to me that he came to Africa. He would come without a return ticket. Somehow he would get a ticket to West Africa, Lagos, Nigeria. He didn't have return tickets. He was leaving. We went a few times. I was able to visit and take his association. At that time, he was spending a lot of time in Nigeria. He wasn't preaching in the West. He was spending a lot of time in Nigeria. And one time he was leaving. 6 times he went to the airport. 6 times. He was saying to us, "I may get a flight today. I'll make it a flight today. And come back after packing, and a few hours later come back, no. I mean, 6 times I saw. That's how difficult it was to live in that country. You buy the ticket on the flight, 120 seats, you'd be there, there'd be 1,500 people in the check-in area with tickets on the same flight. Even they would give you boarding passes. There would be 120 seats on the plane, they would sell 150 boarding passes. And when they make the announcement, it's just like a riot. Flight 874 to London leaving from gate, this is like a riot. Because the people, the last 10, 20 people, they got boarding passes, they won't get on the plane. It's like, there's such a place. Such a place. I remember that we found the airline. It was Nigerian Air. It was like a nail. The check-in counters have the signs of the airlines. There was one nail there that it was swinging like Nigeria Air. He mentioned that one time his presence was very powerful. It was like a family. It was like an ashram. It was the guru. The preaching style was like that. There was a TV show. He showed us the TV show. It was called The Guru. He had the stick. It was like a tribal danda chief, honorary chief. Chief. He had all the different the ornamental clothes that they would award him, and he would wear kaftan, and so many things. So transcendental. He was ahead of his time. He was way ahead of his time. He was generations ahead in his approach to preaching Krishna consciousness, and misunderstood. I remember attending this festival. This would have been probably early 90s, 92, 93, so 30 years ago. I remember attending this Vyasa Puja in Mayapur. There was 3 people. I remember one sannyasi disciple, Maharaj, was there, 2 disciples, that was it, in a gurukul. When he was here on the planet, Vyasa Puja, 3 people. He was way ahead of his time. He wasn't understood in so many... Anything, you read the books, it's a different style of preaching. It was for a special type of mentality and type of person that he came to deliver. So many other things. I mean, devotee care, it came from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He said, I'm a people's person. Devotee care. Came from his whole, today's Avibhav, but whole disappearance. It was just inconceivable. He left. He wanted to take the pain of the young generation. The devotee care it came from his heart into this movement. Srivas Prabhu, mystical things in the classes. Remember, mystical things. He was mystical in preaching. He would charm people. He had such charisma. He knew how to deal with people, big people, and just with his smile. One time in the class, he said, I could embarrass every one of you by revealing what's been going on in your mind over the last 30 minutes. That's a siddhi. He could read. There's so many siddhis that he had. Obviously, when a person like that, I was so a treasure in my life, because such people specifically in this life to contribute to Prabhupada's mission. And he contributed at every level. In the early years, Acharya as a book distributor, later as an ISKCON leader, to harmonize, to bring communities together, to address the issues of the movement. He came for that purpose. Why he left so early, only Prabhupada was calling. Well, how else can we explain? So I had the fortune, Srivas Prabhu, he said to me a couple of days ago, he said, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj appeared to me in a dream and told me to go to Mayapur and study Bhakti Shastri or Bhakti Vaibhav? Bhakti Shastri, in a dream. And I thought that, wow, if I could have such a treasure to be able to still communicate to Krishnapad in a dream, but I've never had such an experience. But in hearing about it, I know that he is communicating and still guiding. If you want that, I think that you could have that. I don't have the desire, but I think he has that capacity to still guide on a mystical level. Brajalila and 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐢 Prabhu, very dear disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, and they came and studied Bhakti Shastri. At that time I was teaching the whole of the Bhagavad Gita, and so we developed a relationship with Brajalila Mataji. So I knew that, I mean, and her husband, as students in the class. So I knew that she was so close to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, she was here for such a long time, so I knew that. Obviously Maharaj knew that her circumstances and everything. And I felt so much qualities of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. I appreciated qualities of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in dealing with his disciple, Brajalila and other disciples that have that same compassionate and care, unlimited compassion. And then His Holiness was strolling along the... I remember other experiences on Parikrama in the Ganga, and he would be taking bath, and we'd just all climb on top of him with the Ganga mati and all over him and massaging and into the Ganga. In Mayapur, he's that silk, that special regal, that bright silk, it would just become like dream inspiration in the kirtans and Parikrama. How he could dance like that for hours and hours. So ecstatic. And that smile, it wasn't like we smiled at people to make a sale. It wasn't like a smile. It was like he was relishing. He had such a treasure of Krishna consciousness, of devotion to Guru and Gauranga. He had that treasure, and he just smiled, and you could emanate. And prema bhakti jaha hoite. Just by associating, we were discussing Vasudev Datta Thakur. If the air that touched his body awakened you, touched you, the air of Vasudev Datta's body, you would be awakened in Krishna consciousness. There's the Vapu Sangha. He was emanating prema, emanating love of Godhead, and by being close to him, you felt the presence of Krishna consciousness just by seeing him smile. Darshan pavitra hoye tomar gun. By seeing you, we're purified. Labamatra sadhu sanga sharbishiti hoy. A few moments association, it was so powerful. He could transmit so much Krishna consciousness. I was going out collecting, I was always, Sadhana Mataji, you just walked in at the right time. I'm saying how I was always memorizing slogans. Memorizing slogans. So then I was sharing how, I don't really like this collection work, I prefer to do more preaching. He said, your time will come. I said, I go office to office, I'm just learning slokas the whole time. He smiled. He said, your time will come, your time will come. So it came by His grace. So then a few days later in the class, he was giving a class and he was thinking of the sloka, and he said, what's that sloka? And he looked at me and says, what's that sloka? I was able to, so just the details. He was so attentive to detail and caring and how to inspire people at every moment, how to inspire people. And I think the last interaction he shared with me, he was walking to the temple. I was coming out of the temple, walking past. And this is after Brajalila had completed a Bhakti Shastri, and he looked at me and smiled, and he said, I'd like to do that Bhakti Shastri course sometime. Of course, I know for such an exalted soul, he was just saying that just to encourage me. I thank you for the opportunity to be here today and hear your reflections and remembrances of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. It gives great joy to my heart. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj Shubha Avirbhav Titima Mahotsav ki.
Thank you. His Grace Atu Krishna Prabhu. We are always very happy because Atu Krishna Prabhu comes every year, even those years that we were trapped in Mayapur for the COVID. He was one of the only senior members that were here with us. That you always come and you share with us. And it's actually a fact that Gurudev used to preach in a very subtle ways. First time I saw him was in a dream on the early internet era. like I never knew about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, isolated in South America, and he came in a dream. Then I contacted him, and I thought, I'm very special, I'm a chosen one. He came in a dream. And I contacted my god brothers, and so many, they came like that. And then after Gurudev came, he said, see, for me, it's easier to preach when I'm sleeping, because it's true. He said, when I'm awake, I have my gross body and my subtle body to deal with. But when I'm sleeping, I have only my subtle body to deal with. That was his power. And next, we would like to invite His Holiness 𝐄𝐦𝐺𝐢𝐬𝐢 Swami Maharaj to share with us. Maharaj also had very intimate association with Gurudev, and he also took Gurudev's instruction, and he's been carrying Gurudev's preaching in West. So we're very happy to have Maharaj here. His Holiness 𝐄𝐻 Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.
Namaste Gauravani Pracharnini
Haribo.
And after Maharaj, we would like to invite His Grace Dhira to also talk about Gurudev.
Namo Shivaya Krishna Prasthaya Gule Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschachari Satarni. Thank you. Today is an especially busy day. I just came from the Parikama and I'm flying out later, so because another devotee that's more than my god brother in many ways, 𝐶𝐚𝐤𝐿 Maharaj, is leaving his body. The last time I saw Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he was for sure leaving his body very soon. He was thinking 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was 6 weeks or something. So I had come from Africa and he told me to go back. Then I asked him, he had a Africa. We shouldn't say African devotees. We always say that, African devotees, Bengali. It's not quite right. We should say it. The devotees that live there, devotees that are born there, whatever. But so he said, first thing he said, don't quarrel among yourselves. So it wasn't very long ago we had Bhakti Siddhanta's appearance instructor. This is the basic instruction we all have to think. This is holding us back. Whatever people think is holding back preaching, whether they think it's the government here or there, or the economy, or the war, or the whatever it is, your bad temple president, or it's all just because we're quarreling for no reason. We're immature. We're not focusing on the center. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, anyone who had any dealings with him knows he made you feel like you're the only person in his whole world. This special power. Then he said, take care of what you have. I took that to mean the devotees. Some thought it meant just the properties, but I think he meant both, but the devotees particularly, because we see a lot of devotees come and go because we don't take care of them. He tried to take care of everybody, even in his last days when a lot of money was collected for his treatment. He just gave it to a fund to help devotees who needed treatment. Then he said, take care of the deities. Then they said, and distribute books. At that time, of course, there was only Prabhupada this morning, and those were the good old days when, we did so many recording devices. And so I came back later and said, now I'm ready. Can you say it again? But he refused. He said, they'll have to trust you. So I don't have a recording of that last thing, but that's exactly what he said. He was in pretty bad shape. Sometimes would go down. But when I first came to America, where he was, I came in the room and I think Chandramali Swami was there, and he had that smile more than ever, you know, and I thought, well, he's all right, he's not sick. You know. And then I looked at his body and saw it was about half the size it was. But he had that big smile, he started crying, and so it was quite a, you know, moving, and even then he still went over to the temple once in a while. And that was towards the end, you know, he couldn't, after a very short time he couldn't move around. I told him, maybe you can recover. He said, no, I can do more by leaving. He was leaving in a very, like everything he did, he orchestrated very nicely and made sure that he was finishing up a few books. The kirtan was going on all the time, and he showed everybody, you know, how to live, how to leave also. I spent some time with him. We were it was after the library party, I think, and trying to sell Bhagavatam sets cold, you know, door to door, which nowadays devotees are doing even in the West. But so this party he was on, they had a mailing list from some magazine that the so-called spiritual things, palm reading and this and that, and, you know, and we'd like to show you. So most of them would agree. So he was had that special style. He would say, I know aura reading, and you have a beautiful spiritual aura. You're a very spiritual person. And in your last life, you were a great yogi, but you made some offense. So now you're here, but we'll give you a chance to, you know, recover from all that, because obviously you're so spiritual, these books are meant for you. They were fascinated by that. He had studied oral reading, you know, for whatever it's worth, but they would be very fascinated, and mostly they would take the book. Then we had to take them on like $5 a month payments and things like that. It wasn't that people were just putting out $300, but so we traveled around a bit, and he insisted on driving because he got up, whenever he woke up at night he would get up and start chanting. So he was always sleepy, and he wanted to drive, you know, so he could keep awake, something to do. So I was reading out loud, and I was turned sideways and reading the Bhagavatam, and we were at a stoplight, and all of a sudden, and I looked up, and there was a light pole that fell down right between us, smashed the whole roof of the car, because he fell asleep and smashed the gas. So I said, can you let me drive from now on? So he appreciated that, that I didn't get mad. It was just so absurd that, you know. He was eating only bananas and peanuts, if anybody wants to follow his footsteps. Later, and he ate much different, but just, I don't know if he's eating even once a day then, but bananas and peanuts, that was all. And focused on the selling books. He was also very learned in Prabhupada's books. He always would ask questions, and we would discuss all kinds of things. I don't remember everything. I remember once he asked about the 26 elements. And so it's quite a, you know, I can't say so much eloquently like I told, but he is, everybody that knew him, you're very fortunate. I think the number of people attending here is growing every year, even though his number of his immediate disciples is not growing. He had a very good program going in Washington, D.C., in the city. And then he got appointed GBC for Gita Nagari and moved his devotees out there, and then the DC thing kind of unfortunately dried up because it was really dynamic. He was perfect for that. His preaching, like the aura reading thing, he could tune into any audience, no matter, the doctors, medical conventions. He could always speak very authoritatively. Like the book, The First Spiritual Warrior, some foolish devotees that didn't really read it, they just heard a little bit. They were criticizing that he didn't write that book as like Vedic authority exactly. It was put together from lectures he gave at one university in DC, which was I don't know how to label people, but it was non-white people, and they're very intellectual and spiritual. So he would talk about the things they were interested in. He would go to the library, he would study the pyramids, and then he would advertise, lecture about the pyramids, lecture about, motherships or, aliens, and all different things. And he had a big audience. And he was very clever. They would record the lecture. They had it was cassette tapes, but they had a copy machine. So on the way out, they could buy the lecture. And then they would, talk to people and see if there was anybody there that was actually interested spiritually, and then they would give them Bhagavad Gitas and they'd bring them to the temple, and made a lot of really good devotees by talking about these things. Just like any book distributor, we talked about whatever. What do you do? I'm a hunter. Oh wow, hunting, I'm also a hunter. Do you use a bow or an arrow or a gun, or what do you, and they'd think, oh wow, this is great, You have to speak their language. So he was speaking their language. It wasn't saying that this is absolute Vedic authority. It was pulling them in, and they were fascinated by him. He could, of course, he's so charming anyway, but it wasn't just like he had a bunch of knowledge pouring out. He was connecting with everybody really personally. A special power he had. So all those things, and we saw in Africa how he made so many devotees, so many temples, so many projects. I don't know if Damodara Maharaj, one year we went over the list of all the projects he started that are no longer going. Remember? So we'd like to get them going again because there's so much potential there, especially growing your own food. That's for everybody, but especially Africa. Prabhupada said, buy a lot of land. When there's war, it won't affect Africa so much. They're going to fight in the northern hemisphere. But grow your own food, be self-sufficient, and keep engaged. Take care of the devotees, and reach out to the people. He was also very early on with interfaith. He was ahead in many ways, so he got criticized in different ways. He didn't like it, but he went along with it. So they told him, write more spiritual books, and he wrote that series, one on Ishopanishad, and strictly scripture. He was very learned in all of Prabhupada's books. He said when he first got books, somehow or other, he was living in New York, and he would get books, and he loved the books. And I don't know if he exactly knew, that the Hare Krishna, these weird-looking people, but he didn't want to join those weird-looking people. But he was fascinated by the books. Devamrita Swami had similar experience. And somehow he got to the temple, he heard Prabhupada, and that was it. So I mentioned this morning on the Parikrama two things that he mentioned that Prabhupada personally told him that he really liked and really affected his life. One was when he first was able to ask a question or speak to Prabhupada it was in the New York Temple. That was in Henry Street, crowded place, and mostly white men or women. And he said, Prabhupada, there's racial prejudice here. Prabhupada looked at him and said, don't be like them. And he liked that, so he understood, don't be prejudiced just because someone's prejudiced against you. Don't hold it against them, they're just uneducated. So he showed everybody, and then he became like beloved of everybody all over the world. Even how he managed to go around in those communist countries, nobody ever saw a black man, And somehow he's going around selling books and not getting arrested, getting away all the time. Because most of the professors could appreciate, they also didn't like the communist, ideas. Another time was later on when he was in Eastern Europe and sending a report to Prabhupada regularly. And Prabhupada loved those reports. So when he came to Vrindavan, and that was when Prabhupada was, in Vrindavan for the last visit, and Prabhupada greeted him, and he was holding his head on his lap and rubbing his head and glorifying him. And so the next day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj thought, well, Prabhupada likes these reports so much, so I'll have Maharaj read the report. He was still Ganesham then. Read the report personally to Prabhupada, and that would be really nice. So he said he was a little proud, of course, and Prabhupada was so much pleased with him. So he started reading his report, and he said Prabhupada was looking all around, he was talking to other people, he wasn't paying any attention to him. So he was wondering, what's wrong, what did I do? And Prabhupada looked at him and said, you're not the doer. And he really liked that, so, he took it. And we all need to take that. We're not all maybe so fortunate to get it directly from Prabhupada. We get it from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. But we're not the doer. No matter what we do, even the things we do bad, it's not exactly us doing it, but it's because of our, attachment to the modes of nature. So we have to give that up. If we do something that everybody thinks is wonderful, it's very easy to think, yes, I did it. But no, Krishna's doing everything. So you're very, very fortunate. We were all very fortunate to have him with us. He made a great effort to produce so many books. Many of them were just taken from his lectures, and then he edited them, put them together, and commented on them. And he would pick out specific subjects and lecture, and then get a book put together. He is a very brilliant scholar. He went to Princeton University, and it's just special arrangement. He was born at the time in America before the so-called civil rights. Some of you might know about that time. Right? So he lived in the ghetto where everybody's non-white and not very wealthy. But he was a very good student. And then they had this civil rights where they could have so-called black people go to the white schools. Before that, they were separated. Black kids would live next to the white school. They'd have to take a bus 20 miles to go to the black school. Even Gandhi, he went to a church and he thought the Christians might be better than the Hindus. He went to the church in South Africa and they said the black church is down the road, So then he gave up on that also. So somebody saw, after he graduated high school, he was doing some kind of counseling, taking care of young people, and the big colleges, they needed to have black people to show their liberality, and so they offered him, he could go fully paid to any university he wanted. So he said he chose Princeton because they offered him the most money. They gave him all new clothes, they gave him 2 free trips home every year, and everything paid. And so he became a leader, like I don't know exactly what the titles were, but he was a leader, even though he was a Black Panther. He was a leader amongst the students. The dormitory rooms had because Princeton was especially the rich people from the South, so they had a servant room that used to be where the rich white boys brought their servants. That kind of mood was still there, but he rose above all that, so nobody thought of him as anything except Favors, whatever his name, John Favors. He was still getting all the alumni magazines, and they would mention him, that he's successful, he's a big Hare Krishna. So, he's an amazing person. I don't know how I managed to get his association. He was very, very humble. When he was doing the library party, I was distributing books in Chicago. At that time, we were distributing a lot of books. And I was so-called leader. And he followed me around and he took notes on what I was saying to people. What is this guy doing? But anyway, somehow we made it. And when he left, walking around Tokyo one time, I saw some television, some famous singer was singing, "Only the good die young, sinners have more fun." So I was thinking when he left, somehow Krishna takes the best away, wants him for some other place. Prabhupada's getting something started. So, but he's not gone. And please go to the Samadhi and pray. Pray for all of us. We met today we were at Vasudev Datta's place in Mamgachi. His deity is there in that temple. And he lived right nearby. Now I see some local persons got a big project going and building a temple for Vasudev Dutt, claiming he has a deity. But deity's in another place. Vasudev Dutt is who offered to take all the karma for all the people and let him suffer. And Lord Chaitanya was very impressed with that. But he said, you don't have to suffer, just your desire. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj especially admired Vasudev Dutt. He would talk about him all the time and try to have that mood. Lord, take away everything that might be holding me back. And so, thank you very much. Swami 𝐾𝐴𝐴, his followers 𝐾𝐴𝐴. You can see that she here, figure Damodara, she was very prominent. Sorry, 𝐤𝐢𝐳. So in West Africa. More coming up, I hope. Right? Jai. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
His Holiness 𝐶𝐤𝐬𝐢 Swami Maharaj ki jai.
So wonderful to hear 𝐶𝐾𝐬𝐬 glorify Maharaj and Atul Krishna. There's so much wonderful appreciations. And in particular, Srivas Prabhu, he mentioned about preaching in Africa. So in that regard, we can take his words very, very seriously, because although Africa is a very exotic land, and many neglected in many ways by preachers of the world, but Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj took preaching in Africa extremely seriously, and he became a friend of Kenneth Kunda. Kenneth Kunda, Kunda, yeah, he was the premier, the president of Zambia. So we can see the rewards are there for those who want to become the true missionaries, those that take up the spirit of Srila Prabhupada's mission. One time, in the very early days, in the early 1970s, Srila Prabhupada was planning the World Sankirtan movement and bringing his European and American disciples to travel with him. And Prabhupada said, I want to go to Africa. So the Americans said, no, don't go there, Prabhupada. It's a very uncivilized place. Don't go there. There's this, that, so many things. So Prabhupada said, no, you can stay here in India, but I will go to Africa alone and preach Lord Chaitanya's mission. And even in time immemorial before, during the time of Ram, he sent his sons to Africa, Love and Kush. So Africa was always considered a very opulent place, a very luscious place. It was Atul Krishna, he cleaned up there in West Africa. And in fact, Ghana and Nigeria have always been very opulent places. They had huge amounts of gold, which was seized by the British, and many artifacts with traditional cultures. So it is a treasure house, just like India was a treasure house until it got plundered by the British. So, but what I like about Srivas Prabhu is that he's trying to rekindle the spirit of missionary work. Now, ISKCON went to Africa in the very early days, in 1971. And Srila Prabhupada understood by bringing his black Americans to Africa and dancing in the streets alongside the indigenous people, that would attract more people. And it really did. And things went on like a house on fire. And we have some beautiful stories and footages of those days in Nairobi. And of course, we always needed the financial backing of the traders, the Indian traders. So they were the backbone of our temples, etc. So they should always be honored. But at the same time, we should also try and preach to the Africans. So try and assist him. Try and assist him. He's the regional GBs. Try and assist him, and rather than live a comfortable life, many of you are young people still, you're still young, I see so many young faces here, and try and come out of your comfort zone and take up preaching. That's all. Try and use your youth. Try and use your youth to better places in the world, such as Africa, where they need your support. It's very much needed. I mean, I remember when Shudi first came to South Africa, and South Africa was in a much worse situation than Black Africa, because it was based on racial divide. And on the basis of the race, you were persecuted. And his life was even threatened at some stage with that apartheid regime. Similar to the devotees in the Soviet Union. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj didn't make any difference to him. He went to the hardcore communist countries, the hardcore. Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Eastern Germany, one of the worst. And he excelled. So when you take that little bit of time and devotion to give it to Krishna, you get rewarded. And he's definitely got rewarded. And there's no doubt about it. So my humble request is, please try and follow in his footsteps and come out of your comfortable situation and see what you can do. And as an Indian, in particular an Indian, you should be very much aware that it's your duty as an Indian to preach the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cult throughout the world. There are so many incidences where Srila Prabhupada quotes that. So take it upon yourself not to become a millionaire, because it's a waste of time. You have to leave it all behind anyway. Please try and preach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And, you know, I'll just, our memory is going a little bit, so I'll try and reflect on a few things that I picked up on from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I have an email from him on the 27th of April, 2005, and in that he says, I am feeling my family's love from a distance. And you should know that our connections go beyond seeing each other and being able to have family members here connect with me. So he was always thinking about my family as being part of his family. And that was very sweet of Maharaj. And then there's this article here from the Sunday Times, 9th of July 1995. And in that, it's called Nation Building Needs to be Based on Spiritualism. It's a South African newspaper. And in that article, Maharaj says, one of the biggest problems is the intense involvement of absorption in materialism. Absorption in materialism as a priority creates greed and exploitation. He said, the issues basing things on race, religion and tribe caused fragmentation, and everybody suffered. The other problem is a crisis in leadership, and all over the world there is a crisis in leadership. Leaders sometimes have self-interest and are motivated in a desire for money which becomes power, and it is situated here and all over the world, said the Swami. So he was addressing, I mean, we've heard about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's talk programs on a radio and on TV. He would reach out to areas where the average person had nothing really to give. Maharaj could kindle the flame very easily on these talk programs. So if you hold any of those talk programs, right? Yeah, so you can access them on the internet like that. Harmonies, they're suffering from all different varieties. And if you listen to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he had a perfect way of presenting the solutions. And that's why he became so famous for his TV shows. And in Nigeria in particular, there was so much opposition to him because he was too popular, right? And then on some occasions, they try to withdraw that ecstatic smile. There's that ecstatic smile. Anyway, I wanted to just mention this last thing. In my newly published book, a few of you have it already, it's just come out. There is a section in here that highlights the tributes to my godbrothers, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj take about at least 8 pages to highlight that, and the strength in community. So those that you haven't seen this book, please come and see me, because there's something that you can treasure and carry with you throughout your entire life to remember Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, because he emphasized strength in community all the time during his later days. He emphasized it, that devotees have to work together, have to know how to cooperate with each other and learn to love with each other, in his own terminology. So I have a few copies with me, and you're welcome to come and get a copy. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a lot to say.
Time is actually concerned for prasadam and everything.
I don't know what to cut out. I'll go as fast as I can. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpadrivasya Kritasandeva Patitanam Pavaneva Vaishnava Namaha. I feel honored to be in such an assembly of great Vaishnavas, much greater than myself. I can just give you a few memories. Of Bhakti Tirtha Swami that I had months ago. Somebody sent me a YouTube of Bhakti Tirtha Swami addressing some, I don't know, assembly of United Nations people or someone, like high-level government leaders. And he quoted from the Quran and the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and even a Buddhist scripture to establish the importance of chanting the holy names of Krishna, or the holy name of the Lord, as a method in this day and age. So he was an extremely eloquent speaker. And I remember I also like my obeisance to Auntie Ami Devi Dasi, who represents Bhakti Tirtha Swami in my hometown in Dallas, Texas, Radha Kalachandi Mandir. And he was such a caring person and such an elegant person, and always doing amazing things. One time I was on a train from Calcutta to Bombay, and I met a student, IT student, that I let him have a copy of Spiritual Warrior. I let him use it while I'm on the train. It was like a couple days train ride. And he loved it. He read the whole book, and he said, "This is the most amazing book I ever read." And Bhakti Tirtha Swami would do amazing things. I heard a story one time that he met Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is a big personality in America. And from what I heard, Bhakti Tirtha Swami wanted to meet him. And he was, a very rich, very popular person. So he was behind closed gates in his mansion in Beverly Hills. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami came up with an idea to penetrate through those gates. That he rented a gigantic stretch limousine and a chauffeur, bright white, like an extension of his beautiful smile. He got this, he rented a tuxedo, a white tuxedo, and a huge white limousine, so that when he came driving up, and a chauffeur, so when he came driving up to the gate, they just let him in without any further ado. He was like, whoever he is, he must be, he's he's in. So he preached to Muhammad Ali and made him into a devotee of Krishna. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami was, the first time I saw him was in Atlanta in 1975. We all went to see Srila Prabhupada. It was a very eventful weekend. And he was on the library party, and I was on the Radha Damodar party. And there was one group of devotees that we had a lot of respect for, was the library party, because everybody knew that they were pleasing Prabhupada the most. You know, Prabhupada said that, what pleases me is distributing my books. Well, what really pleased Prabhupada a lot was distributing his whole sets of books to the universities and getting those quotes. One time I was on a morning walk in 1976 here in Mayapur with Srila Prabhupada, and we came, it was during Gaur Purnima, they had a lot of different pictures of temples, and there was many exhibits. When Prabhupada liked everything, but when he got to the quotes about his books from the university professors, he stopped the whole walk. And on a morning walk with Prabhupada, he had kind of this force field of the mode of goodness, that everybody was on their best behavior. And there was no squishy squash. When Prabhupada would stop, everybody would stop, just like you hit pause on the video, and then Prabhupada would go and everybody would go. So Prabhupada stopped, and then he loved these quotes about his books from the university professors and had a few of them read out loud. They're still there in the Samadhi, those poster boards from that time. So then they were intelligent, and they dealt with the highest level of intelligent people when they distributed Prabhupada's books. And then the next time I saw Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I actually got to have a personal exchange with him. I was in the New York Temple. It was a 14-story building in Manhattan Island, and my job was Prabhupada was there for the Rath Yatra in July 1976. So my service was to gather all the garbage, all the trash from every floor. And there was a lot of trash. And I had to bring it to the basement and then drag it through the prasadam room, the restaurant, and out the back, the alley, and into this big, huge dumpster. So I had filled up the whole elevator to the top with garbage. And then I got to the bottom floor, and when the door opened, there was these three effulgent personalities. There was two sannyasis and Ganesham Prabhu, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And they all had really nice silks on, and they had briefcases. And they were on their way to go see Srila Prabhupada and talk to him about, the library party and these elevated things. So I said, can any of you Prabhus please help me with this garbage? And the two sannyasis looked at me like I was incredulous. And then they said, well, we're on our way to see Srila Prabhupada. And I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. And then Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he puts down his briefcase and says, Jai, service. And he jumped into that elevator with me and spent the next 20 minutes loading the garbage and pulling it through the prasadam room, going to the kitchen and out the back gate, and put it all in the dumpster. So that was my first impression of him. I was just amazed, like he had no reason to do that, but that was the kind of person he was. And then later on, he was, when Prabhupada was really sick in June 1977, during Prabhupada's last few months with us, Prabhupada was lying in bed and he couldn't get up. And then it came mail call. So there would be letters from Bhakti Tirtha Swami about these daring adventures of distributing Prabhupada's books with the KGB hot on his tail throughout Eastern Europe. And like spy thriller stuff. And when Prabhupada heard these stories, he jumped up in his bed and sat up and he clapped. And he said, just see how much he loves me. He doesn't know the language. He's risking his life. He's a black man. I was in New York. Oh, in 1995 I saw him again, and him and Lokanath Swami and Radhanath Maharaj had a kirtan. It was Mangal Artik, and it went all the way through Guru Puja, if you can imagine. So he was such an incredible kirtan leader. In New York, Rath Yatra in 2001, there was the parade was over, and the devotees were having kirtan on the stage, and we were outside in the park, Washington Square Park. And the kirtan was a little sleepy, and then all of a sudden Bhakti Tirtha Swami shows up. And he's got that big drum, kaboom boom, ding. So he starts dancing and chanting with all of us. And pretty soon he had the whole, like hundreds of people in the park just going nuts, just dancing and chanting and wild abandon. He had everybody. You talk about, bring something to the party. He brought this energy that just had everybody going. And then I saw him for the last time was in Russia. I went to the Russian Vaishnava Festival in the year 2002. If anybody ever gets a chance to go to a Russian Vaishnava Festival, I highly recommend it. They're ecstatic. There's thousands of devotees, hours of kirtan, lots of prasadam, and seminars from so many different devotees. So in the Russian Vaishnava Festival, you'll have like 3 or 4 seminars. It's kind of like ILS, you try to, which one am I going to pick? They're all good. There'll be Chaitanya Bhagavat by Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, and there'll be another seminar, Bhagavad Gita, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, another seminar by Niranjana Swami, and it's like, well, there's no bad choices. But then there was one that said Vaishnava relationships with Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So I thought, well, I'll go for that one. So what Bhakti Tirtha Swami had done, and he's in this big, huge auditorium, and there's thousands of devotees. And what he wanted to do is show how you can't stay in a bad relationship with another Vaishnava. If you're having a problem with getting along with a devotee, you just need to fix that and love each other so we could all go back to Godhead together. So what he did was he chose three pairs of devotees that were that wouldn't be in the same room with each other, that were totally at odds with one another. So the first one was 2 brahmacharis, and that one of them was the temple president and the other was the regional secretary. Has anybody ever had a bad relationship with somebody, and you don't really, you don't really want to talk to them? And well, he would find people like, he especially wanted some really hardcore cases. He found a husband and wife the divorce papers were already in works, and he had 2 Matajis that weren't getting along. It wasn't too hard to find that. So he would bring each couple or pair up onto the stage, and the first thing he would do was have them sit down and say 10 good things about the other person that they could think of. And then there was this one lady that was writing it all down, and so he had this organized so that, first there was 10 good things about the other person, and then you had to write 10 problems that come from them not getting along. Just like bad feelings, offenses being made, disruption to the service of the spiritual master. All these problems that come from them not being in love with one another. So then he would another thing he asked them to do was, let's take that person you don't get along with, have it, sit down and talk to them right before they die. Like, let's say that, right, you know, both of us would have a last conversation, and then one of us would leave the room and get hit by a bus, his example he used, and then they'd die. So what would be the last thing that you would say to that person if you knew it was the last thing that you would say to that person? So using this method, he gets every one of them to drop all of their animosity towards one another and embrace one another, and the whole crowd's cheering, joy, you know, like, all right, they're together again. The divorce got called off, and they lived happily ever after. I'd like to think so. And then I went back to Dallas after that festival, and a few more years went by, and Bhakti Tirtha Swami's getting ready to leave Bennett. And we had I always felt that when I heard Tamal Krishna Maharaj passed away, I heard a voice that said Prabhupada needed him. And there was other devotees that said they saw Prabhupada taking Tamal Krishna Maharaj here in the sky off to, and Tamal was saying, no, I can't go, and Prabhupada said, no, I need you. So some of us have this impression that Prabhupada's preaching somewhere and that he has his confidential, intimate assistants go with him. And this was confirmed by Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who would say that he had visions of Tamal Krishna Maharaj coming to get him from Gitanagari during his last days. So there is a of devotees from Dallas, Radhakala Chanchidam, which is Tamal Krishna Maharaj headquarters, and they went to see Bhakti Tirtha Swami right before he passed away. It was Chandavali, Devi Dasi, and Garuda and his wife, and Rasakendra and his wife, Padaduli Devi Dasi. So they loaded up the truck and headed to Gitanagari. And they brought the deities. Tamal Krishna Maharaj had these special deities. One of them he found, a pure silver deity of Krishna that he just came across on the beach in Juhu Beach one time in 1980. So they had these little deities of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, very dear to him. A Radharani was made for them. And then when they presented these deities to Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he said, now Tamal has come to bring me to Prabhupada. And then shortly thereafter, he left his body and went to Srila Prabhupada, brought by Tamal Krishna Goswami. Thank you very much. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Hare Krishna. So then next we're going to have Gaurasundar Prabhu to give his offering, glorification of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. And after that we're going to have His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to give his offering.
Hare Krishna. Vancha Kautarubhyascha Mr. Bhagavan Prabhu also already mentioned about Mr. Bhagavan Prabhu already mentioned about this Divya Morse festival in Black Sea, and I want to speak a few words about this festival. There also, as Mr. Bhagavan Prabhu mentioned, President Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, and I was previously a disciple of Harikesh Prabhu, yeah, and there was hundreds of such persons like I, yeah, who was frustrated, with broken faith, yeah, and there was a big hall, Kirtan hall, and maybe thousands of devotees in this hall, yeah. And many famous ISKCON leaders, Kirtaniyas, try to break this not very good atmosphere, yeah, and make it joyful and ecstatic spiritual, yeah. But nobody can do this. And then microphone take Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, and he started to chant Hare Krishna mantra. Yeah. And it was amazing experience. It was first time when I feel that I'm again devotee, and many persons feel that they're living not some frustrated animals. And it was amazing kirtan. Such a empowered person by Lord Nityananda. Nobody can do. I don't want to mention names. Really great kirtaniyas and very empowered persons try to break this wrong atmosphere, but nobody can do this. But when microphone take Bhakti Tirtha Swami, some miracle happens. Everybody not jump because we should jump, but because they was happy. And what to speak about his books, amazing books. We can still now associate with Bhakti Tirtha Swami throughout his books. Get his wisdom, very deep and practical wisdom from Bhakti Tirtha Swami. We are very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has such intimate associates like Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai!
Thank you, Gurusana Prabhu. And now we're coming towards the end of the offerings, and we would like to invite His Holiness Srila Bhakti Damodara Swami Maharaj to give his offerings. As Srivas Prabhu mentioned before, we are very fortunate when Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, he was on his last days. Many disciples, we asked him, what should we do? For whom we should go to take shelter? And we were expecting, maybe he would say, go to Radhanath Maharaj, go to this sannyasi, go to that person, go to that person. And he said, I have so many God brothers and God sisters that you can go and take shelter. And you should also take shelter of my senior disciples. And by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's grace, we have so many devotees that even after his departure, they are still very strong, preaching and taking care of devotees. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is a clear example of that. So we are very happy to have him here after 2 or 3 years. No, Maharaj? 2 or 3 years. You were not here for the Vyasa because of the global situation, and we are quite happy to have Maharaj back. Not only Maharaj, we have Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj, Bhakti Charankrishna Maharaj. Prabhu just informed me that Japataka Maharaj sent one recorded message. We're gonna play after Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and also before Swami Maharaj to take time. Also, Srivas Prabhu, it's a big blessing for us to have Srivas Prabhu here. Srivas Prabhu is not in Saffron, but he lives his life also as a sannyasi, renounced, giving everything to Krishna. He's having so many responsibilities in West Africa. He's the zonal secretary. He comes to Mayapur. He gives a Bhakti Vaibhav course, Bhakti Shastri course. He's a initiating guru also, which is it's something to be proud of in our Bhatt family. So I would like to thank Srivas Prabhu also.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shittamani Shri 𝐤𝐬𝐬 Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi 𝐤𝐬𝐬 Pracharya Nirvisesa Sanghavati Sata Desatana Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj Ki. A few years ago, before the COVID, for 2 years, one of his godbrothers was speaking here that His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and His Holiness Radha Maharaj left ISKCON. And the first year he said that, and repeat it again the second year. So I felt I should address it because it is misunderstanding. Yes, it is true that His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was not coming to the GBC that time. He was not relating with the ISKCON world. That time he spent it with us in West Africa. And I will tell you the truth, that was the best time of ISKCON in West Africa. It was that time His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj got 150 acres of land for community development in Ghana, Accra, particularly Accra. Somehow or other, we almost lost it, but by his strong desire to develop a community, ISKCON got it back. Now we have the land and we are making plans how to develop it. His Holiness Bhakti Raga Maharaj went there to see the land. He was very impressed by it. It was the same time that Gurudev were not coming to GBC and all that things. He also got the land, 100 acres of land in Nigeria, in Benin City. Not only getting the land that he was doing, he also made an elaborate arrangement to plans how to develop it. In Lagos also he has a land and a place for farming. We're cultivating the land. It was also that time that we have a lot of cottage industries. This is the preaching these things he said every single of his class, every day. He would speak about self-sufficiency. We should produce everything we need ourselves. And he went out to make sure he made all this available. Unfortunately, that time we did not have this experience. Like it was mentioned that he was ahead. He's always ahead. He's ahead of all of us. We didn't know what he was doing. Of course, we were speaking about it, but we didn't have experience. So we are making shoes, karma-free shoes, means without leather, animal skin. We're producing our own incense and oils. The time I told Krishna Prabhu came. So the standard of our deity worship was very high. that time. It was wonderful time ISKCON had in West Africa. We had many devotees, 56 devotees in Lagos Temple alone at that time. It was ISKCON. We had a restaurant in Ibadan, in Lagos. I cannot forget the samosa they were making from our restaurant. I cannot forget it. It's still in my head. I used to tell devotees, we have enjoyed ISKCON that time. We were not importing anything from outside West Africa. We're making everything ourselves, including our wares, dhotis and saris. We have factories which were producing candles. In West Africa, candle is a very lucrative business. If you produce candles, there's so many religious organizations like churches who uses them for their prayers. And Gurudev established all these things. We have also a factory for producing ceramic wares. Even the military governor, he came in to open it because he appreciated the quality of what we're producing. So he was not coming, but there in West Africa, he was developing everything. It was that time that we expanded ISKCON. So many branches of ISKCON were established in different cities. In Nigeria, we have 9 centers. In Ghana, and 5 centers or so, and other places in West Africa. So he established the principle or the process of becoming self-sufficient. And we have to produce everything ourselves. It was that time he trained us and established all these things. But we didn't handle them nicely and close them. But now as an offering to him, we are trying to reestablish all the lost cottage industries he established, which we didn't handle. And we are trying to revive all of them as an offering to him, because this was his desire, to see that we don't need anything from outside. We need also an environment that will facilitate the devotees' Christian conscious life. This is his mission, to make sure he provides a shelter for devotees. Apart from his interest in taking care of children, taking care of women, devotee care. I remember some years ago, Kamtaya Prabhu, he said, I'm not happy how Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left us. Because when he was talking about devotee care, we didn't understand what he was saying. Just like we also didn't understand him that time when he was doing all this program. We didn't understand him. He was preaching radio, televisions, and newspapers, and magazines, and Harinam in the street. He has a different way of presenting Christian consciousness. At Krishna, he participated in our Harinam, the Harinams, and he saw how we also very, very good in dancing. So he should come again. He should come again. So this is His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's life. And we feel very, very confident in him and accepted him as our spiritual master. And we will offer him all these lost cottage industries which he established, that we close it down. It is our desire, and we've been begging him to continue to give us his mercy, his blessing, to revive all that. And His Grace, Srivas Banachari, we're working together to make sure this thing becomes a reality as an offering to His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj and the world of ISKCON. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Where is the devotee who brought Japataka Maharaj's message? Just saying, one time I used to have in my room one picture of Japataka Maharaj with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj on his lap. One time when Japataka Maharaj came, and my Guru Maharaj had already departed, and I showed that to Maharaj, and he started crying. That was his love for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
Right. Legal.
Today is the Vyasa Puja of Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
I called it regularly. At this time, I opened my own club in King, and did some special celebrations.
He would hold this Vyasa Puja regularly. He would come up to the rooftop and we would have a cake and some celebration.
And I had a great friendship with this friendship, and I came with him when he was staying here.
I had a great fortune to have his friendship. I went to meet him, but he was staying in me while he was staying in 𝐾𝐻.
I went there, and he gave me some final instructions.
I went there and he gave me some final instructions. Requests.
He said, please, you have to come again to 𝐒𝐲.
He said, please, you have to come again to 𝐾𝐻.
And I've been with 6 shelter, my disciples are watching.
You have to give siksha and shelter and disciples whoever wants it. And if you can visit West Africa, they'll be very happy. Disciples on a regular basis.
think we should keep it and try, whatever his vision was, we should try to work on that. Make it come true. Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj's Vyasa Puja. Hare Krishna.
So we would also like to invite His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to say a few words on our Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. The International Prabhu should also be ready to say some few words. Then we have Akiva Prabhu who will also say a few words. Then we will bring the program to an end.
Namaste Krishna Alaya Bhupal Satmansh Gaur Karuna. Hare Krishna everyone. You get the puja. So this occasion is very special for all of us.
Incision from Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. You know, it is always a common thing for disciple to ask the Guru what is the meaning of the name. So he gave me Charudeshna Das. So after some time I went to ask him what is the meaning of that name. And he told me, you see, this is a very special name because many devotees, yogis and many devotees, they try to please Krishna, but you are his son. So your position is very special. Like a king or a prime minister or a head of state. You know, people they book appointment for 1 year, 6 months, sometime. You cannot meet him. But you are staying in the same house with Krishna. So it's not difficult for you to please Krishna. So I was really confident and fully satisfied with that name. And one thing I remember from Gurudev is that one word he used to mention, mediocrity. Mediocrity. He said, I don't want mediocrity. Mediocre, this is French. And he says, don't give thousands of excuses for your failure. Don't fail and give thousand excuses. And see, when I look at his life, it was like he has a very short time to accomplish many things. And he was preparing us. Most of us, we did not understand that he was preparing to leave so soon. Some astrologers, we heard that he still have 14 years more to live, but he left before time. And his prayer he made in 2014 in Mayapur during Guru Purnima that he want to take the the karma of everyone, so that is gone. So we have a lot of memories from Gurudev, and what interests me most is his way of relating with people. Many people have said that he started practically the devotee care. I remember, I don't have it today, but 1 year, 2003, 2002, he sent me for the first time in Mayapur. And it was mystical. Those years, I was Tamil president, and I was kind of annoyed for being managing the temple. So I was secretly preparing to leave, not ISKCON, not to leave ISKCON, but to leave the temple and go somewhere and be peaceful. So when Maharaj came, and he always had something to do, he always give arrival lecture from the airport to the temple. So everything happening to the temple, Maharaj knows that. So when he sat on the Vyasa Sam, his first arrival lecture, he says, I'm sending Charudeshna to Australia. Sorry, what is this? How does he know that I was preparing to secretly? It was real that when Maharaj, I also leave the temple to go anywhere. But Maharaj said, I'm sending Charudeshna to Australia. And he said, how did you know that I'm preparing to leave? Then after that, I met him in the room. Then I said, Maharaj, please, can I have a suggestion? He said, yes. I want to go to Mayapur to study Bhakti Sastri. He said, yes, go. Yeah, please go. And he personally arranged my tickets, and he sent me under a care of Mother, I call her my mother, my special mother, Mother Vrajalila Mataji. When I came to Mayapur, I think Atuti Krishna was our teacher, 2002, and no money, as brahmachari, no money for accommodation, no money for nothing, for prasad, and I was really struggling, But I met many nice devotees, especially Mataji Vrajalila and many other devotees and God brothers and sisters. They helped me, and I don't from a French-speaking country, and the first exam was not really good, actually. And the second one, I did better, and I went to show him the results. He said, yes, even though you arrived late and you're not speaking the English, then you did good. Congratulations. Like that. And also, that was time of parikrama. He did the initiation and all the dakshina. I told him that, he asked me, are you going to parikrama? I said, no, Maharaj, because no money. And all the dakshina from disciple, he gave all to me. He said, go and pay your parikram fees. And that's how I went to parikram. So he was really very good father, everything for me. And one thing I remember also, when I joined ISKCON, my parents, they were not happy. So my father sent my senior brother to the temple to send me out of the temple. So when he came to the temple, Maharaj said, I should bring my senior brother. When he came to the room, Maharaj told him, look, your brother is at good hand. I'm his father, and I'm his mother also. So I was really shocked to hear this. How can he say that he's my father as my mother at the same time? And later on, I realized these facts. And one last point, Africa, we have principles, we have culture. There's no way a foreigner can come to Africa and sit on the throne of a king. You are dead. But Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, amazingly, he was doing, in Ghana, he was doing, during Harinam, devotee was carry him on the palanquin and would patrol in all the villages with the king following him, like that. So it was very special. We don't know how he got this Shakti. Because if you do that, if you try to do that in Africa, because in Africa, when the king is sat on a throne, we have two gods, like 𝐤𝐬𝐬. They have, yes. Any mistake, we finish for you. But Gurudev went to Africa and was put on palanquin in front of kings and chiefs also. So it was very, very amazing to see such a personality, and we really miss him. And what pleased him was that he said, when I have lived, after I leave my body, and I will be more present in the life of my disciple and my well-wishers. And that I can feel it for me, it's like it's there every day. Every day I can remember that it's always very close to me. And I feel his presence more than when he was even physically present. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj and Vyasa used to be Buddha's servant for many, many years. And because over there, he came to Africa to do some preaching, so he had something to tell us. And after that, we have a few minutes, then we do
Hare Krishna. Mukam karati bācālam pangam langāyate girim jat kripātam aham vande Sri Gurum Dinatarim. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine. Actually, this particular prana mantra, I remember, was composed by His Grace Gaura Keshava Prabhu. It's very deep and meaningful, explaining his very self, actually. And you know, we hear book Bhagavat and person Bhagavat. We see that in the life of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, that he is like a person Bhagavat. Everything he did was exemplary. As Prabhu was mentioning, of course, he was also always traveling and preaching with Gurudev. But my experience with him is like everything he did was so exemplary. I couldn't believe it. Two short stories I'll share with you. Like we were living, every time he came to Mayapur, he would mostly stay, not always, but mostly stay with Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And devotees would come from all over the world, whoever came to visit him, whether his disciple or god brother, he was always very welcoming everyone and hospitalitous. Like he would ask the devotee, "Have you had prasadam? You have a place to stay?" And the devotee will say, "No, Maharaj, we didn't have any prasadam." And he would look at me and say, "Ganesham, can you give?" Because what I would normally do is because, I would get prasadam for him from the GBC, for his prasadam. And so I'd be saving his prasadam. So he would just say, "Can you share some prasadam with this devotee?" Then, it would probably go on for several times like this. At the end of the day, there would be no prasadam for us, like for him. And that's how it went, And then sometimes he would say, different devotees would come and he would ask, "You have a place to stay?" "Oh, you can stay with us here. You can stay with me here." He would be such an exemplary person. Another wonderful thing that I remember, I would like to share with you, is even before I actually knew him, he would come to Mayapur, and those days we Gurukula boys would be serving prasadam, right? At the Sulabh kitchen. That was our only prasadam place. So all GBCs, sannyasis, gurus, no gurus then, GBCs, sannyasis, different devotees, brahmacharis, we would all be taking prasadam all at the same place in Sulabh kitchen. And so out of nowhere, here comes Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he's all ready to serve prasadam. He said, "Hey, can I help you guys serve prasadam?" I said, "Sure, Maharaj, come." So, of course, at that time, he was not Maharaj. And then thereafter also, when he became Maharaj, he would also do the same. And,
the whole time would be serving, and then we would be making arrangements for our own prasadam, because we knew maybe at the end of the day there was no prasadam for us, and we would be starving, So we would look at each other, the boys, say, hey, let's make place for us now. Come on, the prasadam is quarter of a bucket now, so let's save our plates, And then I would tell Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I said, we're making a plate for you. He said, no, don't make a plate for me. It's okay. Don't worry, no worries. Even if we did make a plate for him, he would just give it out to somebody. And amazing what he would do. He would serve to the last. And then those days, we would leave the plates there. All the prasadam plate would be left on the cemented, the table, whatever. And then, so everybody would be practically gone, and we would be taking prasadam, and Maharaj would even serve us also. And then at the end, he would do different plates where there was some prasadam, and he would just pick out some prasadam from different plates, and he said, I have enough. And then I said, but we saved you a plate. Don't worry about it. I had enough. I'm full. So that's the kind of level of devotee he was. He was setting example by every activity he did, whether it be at kirtan, whether it be dancing, anything, any Vaishnava behavior, any activity that you can think of spiritual life, he would give such an example to us. And actually, it makes me think how great Srila Prabhupada was. When he could attract such transcendental souls of that caliber of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and many others, then you can think how great Srila Prabhupada was also. That he is like a touchstone. He would attract such personalities. So this is how wonderful mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ganesham Prabhu, very much. Just a few words about Ganesham Prabhu. He's a Guru Kuli from Prabhupada's time. He's been serving in ISKCON since the 70s as a child. And just for you to understand how dear he is to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, before initiating him, he said, I'll give you something very special that I have. He said, I'll give you my name, Ganesham Prabhu.
Okay, so we're going to have our last offering for the day, and then we'll have the Buddha offering.
Yeah, we'll have the last devotee who will give his offering.
What if you want to tell your story?
Then we have Bhoga offering, Puspanjali, Kirtan, and after that we will proceed for Prasadam.
Krishnan Prabhu, you want to say something? For Krishnan Prabhu is from the Radha Gopinath temple, the disciple of Radha Maharaj, and we know the relationship between Radha Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So once Radha Maharaj, so that means
Short.
Sorry for being important.
Yeah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Ti Namani Vanchikalpataru Kripasindhivijaya Patitanam Pavanam Vishnu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasana Prabhu Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna. I had the great fortune of meeting Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj first time in 1984. I had just moved to US for my higher studies, and there would be a Rath Yatra festival. It's a place called New Talavan, and there is where I met first time His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj and His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, both of them on the same stage.
as Prabhupada nicely pointed out, very deep relationship between the two personalities. Actually, when we see our present Prabhupada disciples, who may physically here or may have left also, the relationship between them reminds us of the relationship between Narottam, Shyamanand and Srinivas, and it sets an example for a whole society to function. As you know, we will all be, as the generations expand, there will be so many gurus, so many disciples. And the relationship between Bhakti Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj is actually an ideal for the society, that how devotees can have loving relationship, how much they care for each other. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, again I met him in New Vrindavan many times, and I would observe his kirtans, as so many of you pointed out, his attraction for kirtan and dancing. When I was later on shifted to India in Radha Gopinath temple, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj came there a few times. I remember in 2019 and early 2000, and his kirtan was so amazing. He was like dancing. We had a wooden floor, and devotees were afraid that the floor would go down. And the great fortune, I had one book, Chaitanya Bhagavat. This was not easily available. I made a Xerox and gave it to him. I'm still insignificant, but I gave it a small thing. And next time when he saw me, he still remembered that you gave me this book. I just speak 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes more about this prayer. As you know, towards his last days, the prayer that he offered to accept the sufferings of all living and of all the devotees in ISKCON. It's very similar to the prayers of Vasudev Datta Thakur. Vasudev Thakur prayed that let all living being entities go back home, back to Godhead. And similarly, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj prayed to accept the sufferings for all the devotees of ISKCON. Actually, even after getting this cancer, he was writing, he was speaking to the, he was welcoming the whole situation. It's one thing to just say theoretically that everything is the mercy of the Lord. I gained great inspiration from his book, especially the Beggar series, which I read, and many other books. And as one of the devotees was saying, that a devotee is Pustaka Bhagavat, book Bhagavat, and person Bhagavat, combination of two. This is what a devotee is exemplifying. And Prabhuji rightly mentioned that we get an idea, or we get inspiration to serve Srila Prabhupada more and more by seeing the life of the great disciples, how they have dedicated every breath to Krishna consciousness. So on this holy day, I fall at his lotus feet. I beg again and again, Vaishnav Thakur, Dayaras Sagar, Didasit Karuna Karo, please be kind to me and give me love for the holy name. I was just recalling one video of where Srila Guru Govind Maharaj, another great personality, who are practically neighbors here in the Samadhi, he would say this, he must cry for Krishna, Baba, unless you cry for Krishna. And one devotee had made a clipping of Guru Govind Maharaj saying like this, and Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, towards last days in Gitanagari, leading this kirtan, Jai Jai Radhe, Jai Jai Shyam, Jai Jai Shyam. Practically every day during my japa, in addition to my initiating spiritual master, I remember Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and that particular video, where he's literally crying for Krishna. That is our aspiration, that Gauranga bolite habe pulaka sharira, Hari Hari bolite. Women can actually take shelter of the holy name. So today is a very good day. Actually, the day of appearance of a Vaishnava is the day to beg his mercy. Every day we should beg, but especially this day, we can fall at his feet and beg, Kripa Kori, please give me a drop of faith. Shraddha Bindu Deha Krishna Naam Dhane. Give me the wealth of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So next, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah, it's great to learn from Murti. Now we shall now ask Akladara Prabhu to come and give us a very brief. If you go beyond 2 minutes, we'll catch you. loves Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj so much that he would just cry. He will not speak. So we're not allowing him to cry too much. He has walked on foot around the whole India 3 times on Panayatra.
One and a half.
Very brief.
Om Gyana Chamantasya Gyana Janashalakya Chakshura Tasmai Shri 𝐤𝐬𝐬 Vancha Kalpatubhisha Kripa Sindhu Yevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. I'm just remembering just now from the Black Lotus. I highly recommend anybody who hasn't read one, really, the literary incarnation of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And I just remember his memories of his mother's departure. And how his mother was very godly personality, very godly, and how she was a major inspiration for Maharaj. And that while just before her departure, that she was saying how she doesn't want anybody to be sad. It should be a very joyful occasion that everybody can. Now she's able to move on her journey. And I know Maharaj also exemplified always that kind of mood to inspire everybody to be joyful, to be positive, and push on with enthusiasm. Achieve personification of, and to, as so many devotees express, how he is able to instill a spirit of unity in diversity and diversity in unity. By an ability to instill and appreciate that he could enable every individual, whether they're a big government leader or whether they're just a simple little guy, little girl on the street, with a real sense of appreciating them, a real heart-to-heart, through all the barriers, whatever stuff that we all deal with. He was able to cut through all of the muck and get right to the heart of the matter, to the heart of that, in the heart of that soul. Because I know how he did it with me. Anytime he ever came in contact, when I came in contact with Maharaj, no matter what kind of static stuff I had to work through, he always cut through all the muck
He's one of the few really special individuals in my life who was able to really encourage me no matter what was going on. And for that, that's something you can never, it's beyond all the jewels and all the gold in the universe. A friend in need. A friend in need is a friend in need. And that's Vaikuntha, that's Vrindavan. And Maharaj, if anybody represents that quality of Vrindavan, it's practical. Practical. So Maharaj was practical. Maharaj was practical. No, I just can close with I just saw Maharaj speaking at just a couple days ago. I was hearing him welcoming Nelson Mandela and glorifying him as a bonder, someone who's able to bring peace and harmony in the world. In South Africa, just at the time when he was able to, after he was released from prison for 30 years, in the midst of all that apartheid division between all the different sects and religions and races, and how he was able to get right to the heart of the matter. While he was glorifying Mandela, how he was able to, even with, what's the name, Van Koch, that Dutch leader, who was like so much fighting to keep the apartheid, and how he was just, you could see his face, he was really gritting his teeth hearing Maharaj speak, because he was really having to eat humble pie. And we all need it, the bitter pill to become humbled. So I just like to eternally to be able to express my desire to always reside with Prabhupada, especially with Maharaj at his feet, trying to actually catch his mood and be able to assist him in serving Prabhupada eternally.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to have some bhajans while the bhoga is offered. After the bhoga offering, we'll have Pushpanjali, and then after Pushpanjali, we have Guru Puja, and then the last item, Prashad. Yeah, now Prashadam is at Sulab Kitchen. Prashadam is at Sulab Kitchen. So right after the Guru Puja, I'm going to go to Sulab Kitchen and take Prashadam.
Already offered? I handle this.
डाल लो ये कर डाल
No, it's okay.
Shakti Buddhi Bhakti